Hello everyone, it's time for another amazing charging curve, and today we have the Ford Explorer all-wheel drive. Now the interesting part with this car is where most MEB platform cars have the 77 kWh battery like my ID.7 or the previous ID.4, the ID.4 Pro still has it, but the ENIAC has it, but now the GTX versions of the ID.4 and so on get the 79 kWh battery, and this Ford Explorer all-wheel drive also has that. And I only have tested this battery before in an ID.3 GTX. It's amazing that in a small car this battery could fit, but it does, and it's more capacity than it is in my ID.7. And so the question was, does it still have the same charging curve as the ID.3 GTX? So can you expect in all the 79 kWh battery cars, like I said, ID.4, GTX and so on, the same charging curve? And we're gonna see that. Or is it the old charging curve of the Pro, which not a high peak, but stays above 100 kilowatt a long time? We'll see. Let's look at the charging curve. I charged at Tronity from, what was it, 6 or 7% till 80%. Do you want to charge for free? Of course you do. And how can you do that? With Encharge. Encharge is an app you install, and when you are at a charger, you rate the charger. You say if everything is working, if the plug is broken, if the whole area is dirty or something. You tell the charging provider what could be fixed, what could be better. And the charging provider is so happy with this information that through Encharge it gives you kilometers and stars, and with those you can charge for free. Use the link in the description and get 20 kilometers for free if you start using Encharge. And here we go. I started at 6% and it goes up very fast to 180 kilowatt under 10%. And you see that the limit of Ionity and other hyperchargers with 500 amp is already reached, and it stays there for a long time. It goes up to a peak of 189 kilowatt, which should be around here, yes. And then the amp goes down, but it still is above 180 kilowatt. Then we have a dip. Here we're down to 115 kilowatt and then back to 160, where it then goes slowly down. And this dip most likely had nothing to do with the car, or it must be the charger or the network, the power grid and everything, or someone plugged in, something happened, because we'll see in the comparison to other cars that it's extremely similar. Here at 61%, it went down under 100 kilowatt, then up, and then 64% it went really down, and now slowly down. So it's a really easy curve, goes up slowly to 189 and then slowly down to what we have at 80%, still above 80 kilowatt, which is pretty good. And I stopped at 80%. And here we have the charging curve and the info always. The Google spreadsheet here is in the link in the description below under the like button. And you have all the cars I've ever tested are in there. And if it's the new one, it's like this. If it's an old one, it could look a bit different, but I had to find out what the best thing is. And here you can always see the time every minute, the state of charge, the power and the kilowatt hours charged. Here extra, and on the right side 10 to 80%, 28 minutes. And we can see what I just said. It goes instantly up to 180 kilowatt and then slowly to the 189. And then here we had that little dip down at around 41%, and then back up and then slowly going down again. And here I think there's another dip. It should be a bit more up here. That would look a bit better. But still, let's compare it. So in this comparison, I have 4 cars. I have the Ford Explorer that we just tested, ID.4 Pro with the 77 kWh battery, the ID.4 GTX back in the day when it still had the 77 kWh battery, and the ID.3 GTX, which has the 79 kWh battery. 10 to 80% times, Explorer 28 minutes, both ID.4s 29 minutes, and the ID.3 GTX 25 minutes. And we'll see in the curves here that the Explorer could also do 25 minutes. This was a problem with the grid, because as we see, blue, the ID.4 Pro only goes to around 145 kilowatt, but stays above 100 kilowatt till up here, what is that, 75%. The GTX goes higher, but then goes under the Pro curve at around 45-48%. But then the ID.3 GTX and the Ford Explorer are very, very close. I plugged in the ID.3 at 10%, not at 6%, and we see that it is above the Explorer most of the times here at around 38%. That tells me that there was something wrong with the charger or with the grid. I think that the Explorer could do this because it's so similar here in the beginning, and then was this dip, and then you see that the ID.3 GTX is above most of them, and I think the Explorer can do it too. It can do 25 minutes if the grid is fine, but if it's not fine, then you have 3 minutes to wait. It's a great charging curve. They did really well. So it's answered. It has the curve of the ID.3 GTX. So I'm guessing that all 79 kWh battery MEB platform cars have the charging curve, the perfect one here with the ID.3 GTX in green. Then we get to kilowatt hours charged over time. So you see when it goes up, there are more kilowatt hours charged, and to the right is the time. We have again, the colors are different for whatever reason. Google does this. It's really hard to adjust this all. But in green is still ID.3 GTX, in blue is Ford Explorer, and it's almost the same except here where after the dip. And then the ID.4 GTX with the old now has the same charging curve, and then the old ID.4 Pro, which I don't know because I get comments sometimes that the ID.4 Pro also has now this new charging curve of the GTX, not the old 145 kilowatt max anymore, but here it's way under the others. Then the range, so range added into the battery in kilometers over time, and this is with charging loss. This is the kilowatt hours I just seen on the charger, including charging loss, and then I calculate with the average consumption they had in my tests at my 130 kilometers an hour range test, and then we see how much range it added. And here is very important. The ID.4 Pro and the ID.4 GTX both were tested in a very similar time. I got the cars after each other. They didn't have it wasn't as warm as with the Explorer, and I couldn't drive the same average speed, but they had lower consumption. So the Explorer was also not extremely warm, but still it was 240 watt-hours per kilometer. The ID.4 Pro 225 because it's lower consumption than the GTX and the Explorer because it was all-wheel drive. You can think around 5 to 7% higher consumption just because you have the all-wheel drive version, because the motor is not doing anything, but it still has to turn while driving, and that gives you a bit of loss. And also important is both ID.4s were on 21-inch wheels. The Explorer was on 20-inch wheels. That is important. And when we look at the range, we can see we have, why does it say EV3? Ah, Google, what are you doing to me? It's not EV3. That the Pro is still underneath, even though it has a lower consumption because the charging wasn't that amazing, but it's not a gigantic difference. When we look, Explorer after 20 minutes at 203 kilometers, GTX 202 kilometers, and the Pro 195. That's 8 kilometers difference, so it's not a big deal, but like I said, the GTX now has the same charging curve, so it will have a bit more, but it's not gigantic. So the charging curve is better, but when it comes to range, it's not gigantic difference, but still it's an improvement. So we have our answer. The Ford Explorer all-wheel drive with the 79 kWh battery has the same charging curve. In my opinion, it really looks like this, like the ID.3 GTX, and therefore I say that all new cars that have the 79 kWh battery, ID.4 GTX, Enyaq RS, Elroq RS, will have the same charging curve here with a peak of around 189 kilowatt, goes up extremely fast to 180 kilowatt, stays there till 31%, and then slowly goes down, and even at 80% you still get around 80 kilowatt, which is awesome. And you can also charge the car to 100%, yet 95% you still get 40 kilowatt or so. That's really nice if you need it. For most people it's not important. For me it's nice. If you want to follow me on Instagram, BatteryLife1, and if you want to support the channel, there's a Patreon link in the description below. And here on YouTube, there's also channel membership. And if you want to know what's happening behind the scenes, I have a third YouTube channel, Behind the Battery. But that's it for me. Thank you much for watching. Have a great day and take care. Bye.